Let's see. It looks like we are started. I'm going to have to double check here in just a second before we continue. Tonight's show is going to be short, and I wouldn't be too surprised if people don't hop on. The things we're going to be covering tonight, if we can, will mainly be asking a question: when does life begin? Just like any book, right? If this is time, right? And you can say, I'm looking for, let's say, the difference between the New and Old Testament. You can open up to a spot and say, Proverbs. Is that New or Old Testament? Old Testament. Okay. Take what's left in front, split that in half, open it up, and now I'm in John, New or Old Testament. That's New. Okay. Take what's left, you get the idea, split in half, and you'll get Joel. And you can keep going and keep going and keep going. So the point is, with development of what people call a fetus or a baby, you should be able to say, is this alive or not? Is this alive or not? Is this alive or not? And then you should be able to get yourself down to life. And then we're going to be talking about some of the other things. I just had a thought in my head, which is we need to talk about, I'm going to write this down, not just life, but rights. What about rights? Because I know a lot of people in the last show, they were arguing about babies in the womb don't have rights. It's not even a discussion about whether or not it's alive or not. It could be 9 months, ready to be born, mother's choice. And that was a very extreme view that I wanted to get at. And we'll get to that in a minute. And I didn't do any research in advance. So we're going to be doing a lot of this together. You're going to be able to see my process. I'm not trying to have an opinion in advance. I mean, obviously, I do have an opinion, but I'm not trying to have a I'm right, you're wrong attitude. I'm trying to have more of a attitude where we come together to figure this out. Because this is science. This isn't politics. It shouldn't be opinions. It should be what is fact, especially when it comes to life. If we had a graph, right? And we had to, and I'll grab another note card so I can just keep my mind straight in all of this. And we have a line right here, and we said, what would be 100% everybody would agree, not life? I think everybody agrees for the most part. Life starts after sex or after, the egg and sperm meet. So I would say if everybody agrees on that, if we can generally say that there is no life before that, I mean, how would you even go about arguing that point that there would be life? We could say that's not it. So we're going to put over here conception. Just going to write this down real quick. And that's going to be our target of not alive. We know not conception, not alive. And again, we're going to start out very broad. On the other hand, just to be fair, we could put it on the other side. I've not heard a single person on our panel argue that a baby outside the womb, so birth, wasn't alive, wasn't human. So on the other side, we'll put birth to not be here for this because of it. But you see this says 20 weeks, right? This one right here says 20 weeks pregnant baby and everything. Well, pregnancy, there's a baby. What I would argue, though, is what do we know about this at 20 weeks? Because just because it looks like something doesn't mean it is. And I'm trying to give the benefit of the other side here. So we see here, you got fingers, you got a head, you got all of this. So let's ask a couple questions. What DNA does it have? What species is this? Just to clarify, it's human. Okay. So we are not looking at just any animal here. We're looking at human, which means if it is alive, it has rights. So 20-week baby, what should we say? Characteristics and development right here, okay? We're looking at this part right here. Unique fingerprints, footprints, and nails, fully formed. So the things that we use to identify things. Movement and senses. I would say this is a very important one to see if something is alive or not. Does it react to stimuli? That is one of the characteristics of life. Muscles are stronger, allowing for noticeable kicks, turns, and even hiccups. The baby can swallow, suck their thumb, and respond to sounds and voices. I would say we don't need to go any further. If it can respond to sounds and voices, then there's something alive. If we got a signal from outer space and they responded back to us what we did, and we could prove, hey, every time we do this, it mimics back in some way, then we would say there is extraterrestrial life. That is life out there somewhere, and we would go and try to find it. Okay, so I would say at this point, 20 weeks, we can verify. So I'm going to mark it down, halfway point, 20 weeks. Okay, 20 weeks is life. I'm going to check mark it. I know this is low tech, but you're going to see what I have here. It's horribly spelled probably, but halfway point, I got 20 weeks. We got is life. So let's half that number. Let's do 10. Because as I said, you're searching through, you pull up half. If half points towards one thing, okay, then you pull up half of that again, see where that lies. 10 weeks alone. We're looking here, and let me show an image real quick. Let me see what 10 weeks looks like. Okay. Oh, I'm already screen sharing. I never stopped. Great. So if you look right here, you see this is an illustration, obviously. It's way less formed. You can still see a head. You can still see eyes, still see fingers. Let's see if we have a live action picture. I think that's just a high resolution example. You can do a lot of examples. This one looks like it could be real. Modern mom. You know, if you want to find the gross stuff, all you gotta do is say aborted. Aborted. And bam, there you go. You can hold it in your hand, you can see it. That's what it looks like. To the best of my knowledge, it's a real picture. I mean, obviously, I could be fooled here. That could be a little dull, but I mean, the what do you call it? The examples ring true enough. They ring true enough. So what you see is you still see eyes, you still see hands, you still see little organs in there. There's lots of stuff that's still going on. Okay, so interestingly enough, okay, alive or not, I don't care. Are we going to talk about something different tonight? So tonight's conversation, and I'll go back over it, we're going to be talking about when does it start as alive? And then the other topic is going to be what are the rights? When do you have rights? If we look at this picture, you have a spine, you have organs, you have like what looks like could be an eye. I'm not going to say I know that's an eye. You got like a head cavity area. I shouldn't say cavity, but you got a head area. It's definitely not just a glob. It's not a clump of cells, but it's something. So let's go and look at what that something is. Let's remove the tag aborted. And again, I'm just changing a few different things to get all of this different information. I'm getting a textbook's worth of information. 5 weeks old, babies are becoming more alert, social, and physically, okay, hold on. Nope, that's born. Okay, I was like, alert, physically, social. I'm like, okay, hold on. Let's change one of our words. So we're going to have to change our words to a degree because we said baby, and so it's going to think, you know, birth, which is really weird. We have 9 months, and then you go back to being 1 day. So we're going to have to type in fetus, which I hate that word just because it makes you so not human. But for sake of the discussion, we're going to have to use their language. At 5 weeks pregnant, the embryo is roughly the size of an apple seed or a grain of rice. We're talking not big at all. It grows at an exponential rate, so we're getting down small. I want to point out, it says blood. It's going to be pumping blood. Now, from a biblical perspective, the Bible says life is in the blood. You got blood, you got life. There's no question about it. Okay? But let's look at it from more of a scientific part. Because you could be saying, well, the Bible's just referring to the idea that without blood, you can't live. Okay, I'll take that argument because from a simply carnal, statistical situation, blood is not life. Blood just helps life. Embryos resemble a tadpole with a large head and a small tail. I want to point out, they're going to start referring to it as different things, clump of cells, this, that. You notice you're not ever going to see the word human here. That's because people want you to believe certain things. But what do we see here? It resembles a tadpole. What species is it? Human. you're going to find human DNA. If you blended it up so you had goo and no scientist could tell you what that was, they could do a DNA test and see, oh, that's human species. Not to create a graphic picture. Let's go to images and let's look up aborted. And let's see what it looks like here. And I'm going to pull this back up for you. And again, I've not prepped any of this. I've not practiced any of this. I'm just looking at it with you. Okay, so what do we have here? Aborted. We have 2-week fetus. Let me see. Maybe this would be a good image. 4 weeks. It looks something like this. That is a very small image. I don't know if you can see it, but it's still not just a clump of cells. But no, 4 weeks. That's close to 5 weeks. 2 weeks. Here we go. Now this does look like a clump of cells. Okay. We definitely are getting closer to the clump of cells. That might be what this is. What a pregnancy actually looks like. Yeah, this could probably be an image of 2 weeks. Granted, 2 weeks, you don't even know you're pregnant half the time when you're 2 weeks. So you got this inside you. You might start feeling sick, all that whatnot. Obviously doesn't look human anymore. I'll agree with you there. Don't look human anymore. But again, if you poked at it and you took a DNA sample, what is it? Okay, it's human DNA. Okay, so this is human species here. Now, we got to determine, is this alive? I'm just doing the same thing over and over. You're getting bored, you don't care about where I'm going, then fine, leave. But I'm just saying, right, if anybody says, well, it's not really alive or this or that, the other thing, you can just look at the different things. You can just see what's going on. I'm using the internet here. A mature egg is released, it's fertilized in the fallopian tube. The resulting zygote, as Raptor was talking about, begins dividing while traveling to the uterus. No actual embryo is present in the first few days of this week. Well, now it's talking about the first week, isn't it? But it marks the start of the process. Now, remember, it's saying no actual embryo. They're naming all of these things that they want. We're talking about this thing, it's not that big. But we're talking about this thing that the sperm has made contact, it's fertilized. This thing will become the baby. So, is it alive yet? Well, it's splitting in cells. Let me see what it says here. If sperm meets the egg in the fallopian tube, they unite to form a single-celled zygote. That's one cell. The zygote begins dividing rapidly as it moves down the fallopian tube towards the uterus, becoming a ball of cells. So it's just dividing into multiple cells. Let me see what else we get here. You get your hormonal changes. We're not going to see much action here. We're going to see some cells growing. Now, are cells considered alive? I'd say that's what your question is. Now, you got to remember, a human cell doesn't necessarily mean human. But I would say if it's self-contained, then that's different. So I'm going to Google here. Are cells alive? I'm just curious what the internet will say. Yes, cells are considered alive. Are you serious? Let me show it to you. Yes, cells are considered alive. So when we argue it is life, then it's life. And it has a full set of DNA that's not yours. Now, let me talk about what cells do, though, because cells are pretty complicated. You got already inside a single cell, and I'm not even talking about a baby cell. I'm talking about just like a normal cell, like a muscle cell or a skin cell or anything else. You got a nucleus where, you hold the DNA and all the information. You got mitochondria. Everybody knows it's the powerhouse of the cell. You have the Golgi apparatus. You have the lipid wall. You have an entire city built into this one thing. Okay? And they consider that life. So would I say that a single cell zygote can be considered alive? Yes. I would say, actually, the moment you can find DNA of a being that isn't the mother, that would be considered life. That isn't the mother. Because it is growing, it is developing, it is adapting, it is responding to stimulus. Maybe not you poking at it, but it is responding to stimulus. It is growing. That is a baby. It's not just a clump of cells. People like to say a clump of cells because they don't know what cells are. This has biology. It is actually growing. So we have here conception, right? We found that one cell that is fertilized is definitely alive. Now, what is it before it's fertilized? Let's go there because we're not done all the way through the book, okay? Unfertilized egg of mother. Let's see what we get. And we're just going to look for a general description. Released during ovulation. Survives for only 12 to 24 hours in the fallopian tubes. I've heard people argue that, but okay. If not raised by sperm, the egg disintegrated and is reabsorbed to the body. Okay, so here we have something that's very different. It's not growing. It's not developing. It is not responding to stimuli. It is fading away. It was a built structure, ready to go, and fades away. Doesn't really seem like life. So there you go. I think from a very brief understanding, and we could go way further into this, we got a line. Not conception, not baby. Conception, baby. Because when it's conceived, it starts responding to stimulus. It starts growing. It starts developing. It starts reproducing itself in cells. It starts growing at a rapid pace. It starts building like crazy the moment it's conceived. I don't care if you call it a zygote or whatnot. Let's see what the chat's doing. We're going crazy here. What am I saying? Acknowledge the chat. Just listens to himself speak. I am by myself today, so I can only pick one or the other. Currently doing chat. I did put the group chat out. I did put the link out there. If anybody wants to talk, I will let you guys in. Nobody's coming into the chat tonight for whatever reason. If the link's not working at the very top, let me know. I'll get that situated. But I did put the link at the top. I just can't read every single note here. You guys would be typing faster than I could be reading these. You're gonna have to come in if you want to confront me. I did put that link out there. Let me see what else you got here. White fatigue, guys. I don't know what that's talking about. You hate the medical term that's been used for like 2,000 years. Yeah, I don't know about 2,000 years. But yeah, definitely people have been, how do I even say this? People have been trying to justify it not being alive for quite some time. I wouldn't necessarily say 2,000 years. So what do you think about when life starts?
I think it starts once you are born. Like born, not
given in, like actually out of the womb.
Yes.
Okay. So then my question would be, what if it's one day before birth? You're in the womb, but you are fully formed. You look like a full human baby. You act like a full human baby. You're just not outside the womb yet.
I'm still fine with abortion because a C-section is an abortion.
Okay, so first, a C-section is not an abortion. It's a way to get the baby out.
An abortion is when a pregnancy is not carried fully. Like giving birth through the uterus is not fully, like,
okay.
The process is interrupted in any form or way. That is an abortion. That is what is classified as an abortion. Even
okay,
though
I will humor that because that's not my discussion here. Let's define some words then. Because I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about ending a pregnancy where the baby lives. I'm talking about when is a baby considered alive? Let's remove the word abortion. Let's remove all these words and constructs that other people put on it. A baby's alive after birth. We can agree on that. Is a baby alive before it exits the mother in one form or another, whether that's a C-section or a vaginal birth, as they call it, without worrying about the word abortion?
I'm going to go radical here and say the baby is only alive once it's out of the mother.
Once it's out of the mother. Okay. So then can we agree if the baby is removed from a mother, right, then we should do everything we can to save the baby? If it's outside the mother.
Yeah, we should try everything, but
okay.
Hopefully you're taking them.
Yeah, let's agree with that, because right now in some countries, I know they do this in Australia, they'll give birth to the baby, they'll cut it out or they'll pull it out, and then they'll leave it on a table and wait for it to die. And some countries do that. I don't know if America does it, but some countries do that as an abortion. They'll pull it out prematurely and then just wait for it to die. It's fully formed. It could be spared, but they don't for whatever reason. Well, so my point is for those who are able to listen, and again, every country's different. You know, we can all agree that somebody is an evil person, right? We can all agree that somebody out there is probably an evil person. There are times, and I have seen the video footage, so when somebody says that doesn't happen, yeah, so we could agree a baby, whether it be theoretical or if it actually happens, we could both agree that if a little person, you can see arms, hands, they're moving around, they have eyes, they have a mouth, they are DNA human, and they're on a table and their heart is beating and their brain is thinking, we should save that person.
Yes, of course.
Okay, so right there, we can agree that certain people in certain countries are considered murderers already. Okay, so let's say 41 weeks. The baby's been in there way too long, right? Baby's fully developed. There's no argument about that. Do we say, well, let's just get the baby out? Or do we say it's not life? It doesn't matter. It's not life. We're not talking about the woman's right here because we could just pull the baby out. We could say, oh, you don't want the baby? Let's just get it out, right? We could do
that is the woman's decision.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying if the woman says, let's abort it, right? You could do the C-section. You could abort the baby and then have it live because that's what you're saying. So I'm saying let's agree with that. I'm saying, is it life, though? If it's in the womb, if there's this much flesh between the baby and the outside world, right? Is it alive? It's the mother's decision to keep it in the womb or not, sure.
But it is not alive because its body is not independent from the mother yet.
Well, the baby's not independent from the mother afterward either.
No, I mean in the body. They do not have an independent body and still rely on the mother. It is her decision to whether she carries out an abortion or not.
Okay. So I'm gonna regret saying this, but with the example of parasites, because some people accuse it of being a parasite, are parasites alive in general?
Yes, because they feed off of something. However, it is someone's decision to get rid of a parasite.
Okay, but we agree it's alive. A parasite is alive. So here's the thing. Are parasites heavily reliant on their host?
Yes.
Okay, so if a baby, and I say if because I'm not agreeing with this, but if a baby is a parasite, could it still be alive, even though it's not fully sufficient on its own? Because that's the definition of a parasite, not fully sufficient on its own.
Well, the baby is not fully formed, unlike parasite.
No, I said 41 weeks. I said fully formed. It just happens to be in the mother's womb.
But they can't just, decide to which host to latch onto. They cannot make those decisions. They are still underdeveloped. So yeah, I'm still fine with abortion.
Well, I'm not talking about abortion right now. I'm talking about life. Let's please remember to separate the two because you said that abortion can be a C-section where the baby lives. And I'm like, great. Okay, I support that. I support abortions where the baby lives, just to be clear. So I
support all and every type of abortion.
Okay, so that's the thing, though. What I'm saying is we're not arguing abortion. I want to argue, when does life start? I'm very curious. When does
life starts outside of the womb?
Okay, so life starts when you become outside the womb. Why? What science do we have to back that up?
Well, I'm only saying that because it's stupid, because they're just going to change, the argument, because inside the womb, you would debate, oh, it's murder no matter what. And I do not agree with that in any certain sense of the word. So I'm saying outside of the womb because it is against your argument.
Okay, so you're not saying it is or isn't life because you believe it. You're saying it is or isn't life because you want to disagree with me, is what you're saying.
No, I'm saying it because so you can't take my points and be like, oh, you're wrong.
Yeah, so you're disagreeing with me for the sake of disagreeing with me. Because I'm asking you, when do you think life starts legitimately and why? That's what I just spent the last 20 minutes talking about.
Well, outside of the womb, because, that's the radical approach, and I support abortion at any week.
Okay, so you're radical without logic, is what you're telling me. Because I asked for logic, you won't give it to me. So you're radical and you refuse to have logic. Because I'm not asking you to have my logic. By all means, have logic that conflicts. That's great. That's how we come up with new ideas. But I'm asking, what is your logic? And you won't give it to me.
Maybe you don't deserve it.
None of us deserve to live, to be honest. It's not even an abortion question. It's about, are we good enough? And we are. But science is factual information. So I'm asking for factual information. Is this thing in the mother alive? I don't care about the rights and should you abort it or not. That is, okay, as you said, your choice. Not the topic for tonight. The topic we're having for tonight is it alive? as you said, a parasite is alive. Just as much as a dog is alive, or a cat, or an amoeba, or all these different things are alive. Okay, right? I'm simply asking, is it alive? Does it respond to stimuli? Does it grow? Does it develop? The definitions of life.
Well, on QStream, we recently discovered that a fetus is in a type of a coma during some of the weeks. So, ending a fetus's life is fine because they don't feel pain.
Okay, so a fetus, you just said a fetus is alive. It is alive. It doesn't
Yes,
feel pain.
but it doesn't feel.
Sure. It doesn't feel pain, sure. It doesn't have developed thoughts because it doesn't have a fully deformed brain, but you would say it is alive. And
yes, and I still support abortion.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. I think next week's show might be the rights debate.
Free Palestine!
And to each their own opinions. Don't you just love how they have to get their last opinion in? Okay. I do have to end soon. I'm probably going to cut it short. We'll go into the rights next week, but I do want to say, what is life? Where is life? When does life start?
When does life start? When as soon as you pop out of the vag, and take your first breath.
What is the difference between the couple hours of process of being in the womb comfortable and outside the womb cold and wet and naked?
Your own bodily autonomy is the difference, Jeremiah. I'm looking at the wrong camera. Your own bodily autonomy is the difference, Jeremiah.
Okay, so the ability to like make your own choices and all that whatnot.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, babies don't really have the ability to use a lot of their autonomy. They're still pretty helpless.
It's almost like we were talking about last week, how they're parasites upon the host.
Well, yeah. So here's the discussion we're having, right? And I even said I don't agree that it's a parasite, but I'll use that terminology. Are parasites alive?
Are parasites alive? Yes.
Okay. So could a fetus, as some people call it, which is a parasite,
some people? What do you mean, some people? First of all.
People disagree. Some people want to call it a baby like me. Some people want to call it a fetus like you. I'm not arguing that. I'm saying this thing. We all have different names for it. If you hear baby, baby and fetus are going to be interchangeable words for this discussion. What I'm getting at is this thing inside you, right? That is called a parasite. Okay.
Yes.
It's alive inside the mother.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter.
Okay. So here's my thing. I'm not talking about rights. I'm not talking about does it matter. I'm talking about life.
You're trying to have a philosophical argument. You're trying to do philosophy on the abortion argument. I know.
Well, you're saying it's alive.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter.
Okay.
You don't have Jeremiah. You don't have the right. Even if you're alive, you don't have the right to use somebody else's organs to survive without their consent. Okay. If the person consents to it, that's perfectly fine. I don't care. But if it doesn't matter if you're alive, Jeremiah. You don't have the right to.
On this, but I'm trying to talk about science and facts here. I'm not talking about.
This is science and facts, Jeremiah. What are you talking about?
Rights are not science. Rights are what we talk about amongst ourselves as humans, and we try to take people's rights away, and we try to give people rights and all that whatnot. I'm talking about facts, okay? I'm talking about biology here, not rights. So I'm saying next week we're going to address whether or not the rights of the mother versus the baby versus the doctor.
Oh my God, man! You got to do something other than abortion. I've litigated this with so many people. It's so boring.
You're interrupting, okay?
Look,
I'm talking.
We're having a conversation.
When does life start? Please, I'm going to unmute it. Hey, I'm going to unmute it here in a second. You're interrupting. You're being rude, okay? Look, the question is, when does life begin? Not valued life. I'm not asking when valued life starts. I'm asking when does life start? Okay? Let me see if I can. Did I force mute you or did I just mute you? Try to unmute.
Wow.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, so answer the question, please. When does life begin, regardless of...
Jeremiah, I answered your question when I first showed up here. When you take your first breath out the womb.
Well, but you said...
When you're born.
You said a parasite in the mother still has life, though.
A parasite in the mother still has life? Yeah.
Well, yeah, so...
But that's not when life starts. That's not when human life starts, buddy.
No, I'm not talking about particularly when you clarify it as a human that has value. I'm just talking about life.
So you don't want to do my philosophical argument, but you want me to do yours.
Yes, that's the point of my show.
Oh my God.
You came on my show.
This shit's so dumb, dude. All right, I'm on your show. What's up?
Okay, so my philosophical argument, because we're on my dumb show, is
It's
That
pretty
thing
dumb.
that you poke in the mother, regardless of if you want to call it human or not, it has DNA. That DNA sequence doesn't change. That thing, whatever you want to call it, a fetus, a parasite, is that alive?
Also, I'd like to point out, Jeremiah, that not all parasites are alive. Viruses are parasites, and they are not alive. When does an egg become a chicken?
This is not a virus, though. I'm asking about this type of parasite.
And I'm telling you that there are parasites that aren't alive.
Okay, but that's not this one. We're talking about this one. When does this one have life? Not
Actually, I would consider a fetus to be a parasite that isn't alive until its first breath,
and why?
because you're not alive until you take your first breath, Jeremiah. You're not surviving until you take your first breath. You're not surviving on your own. You see what I'm doing right now? This is a perfect example of homeostasis. I'm keeping myself alive. Now, if I was still hooked up to my mom, that would mean she was keeping me alive.
So what about people who can't breathe on their own or can't run their heart on their own? They need machines.
They're already alive, Jeremiah. They're already out of the womb.
Yeah, but did they die?
No, they're already alive.
Well, you're saying the ability to keep yourself going is life. What if a machine?
And that's another great philosophical argument that we could have. But you seem to be afraid of having like any other philosophical discussion that I want to bring up because it's your show, even though I have twice the viewers.
Well, yeah, but you came on my show. If you want your own show and you want people to come on it, that's your choice. You came on my show.
Yeah. Hey, all the people. I would ask the people in your chat to come to my show, but they already are. So I can't, unfortunately.
That's fine.
Dustin, if you're watching, Ryan, if you're watching, Jim, Tim, or whatever your name is, if you're watching, Q is drifting on Twitch. Be happy to talk to you.
Okay. Well, anyway, so you're on my show. I'm asking about the definitions of life. You have yet to necessarily describe one that makes sense in a scientific way. The Bible, not the Bible, the
scientific way.
The scientific definition of life, the characteristics of life, I believe there's 8 of them. None of them classify that the subject of discussion must be breathing.
The subject of discussion must be breathing. But yeah, would you keep a parrot? Would you keep a tapeworm, Jeremiah? I asked you this last week and you couldn't answer. Would you keep a tapeworm, Jeremiah? It's alive.
It wasn't about not asking.
And taking it out of your body would kill it. Would you keep a tapeworm?
Look, the question is at hand.
No. Answer my question, Jeremiah. I've answered all.
You're being immature. Look, okay, here's the thing. You're coming on my show, okay? As he pointed out, my thing that I'm being focused on, that I'm afraid of other things. I'm not being afraid. Here's the point. It's my show. I have a point. I actually want to get off and hang out with my wife for Valentine's. But here's the thing. I'm trying to take a little bit of time out to do this. I'm trying to get down to when is it life? We're going to let one more person on. Iron Gullet. The question of debate, and the only question we're bringing up, all other questions must pertain to this question, is when is life? When it refers to a fetus, a zygote, a baby, when does it start having life?
I mean, technically, semen and eggs are alive. They're living cells.
Okay, so you would say before conception.
If you're worried about when something is alive, everything is always alive until it's not.
Well, there's certain things that aren't alive. Like I'd say this pen isn't alive.
Well, anything organic is going to be alive. You want the actual definition of life?
Well, I mean, life got to start somewhere. I started at some point. I didn't go on forever.
Okay, but are you worried about when women have periods and when men come without reproduction? Is that a loss of life? We
can talk about that. The definition we're trying to talk about is when does a life start? So if you're saying before conception, that'd be an interesting conversation to have. But is that your official claim? Is before conception?
If you're talking about the definition of something being alive, sperm and egg cells are alive. That has no bearing on abortion to me. I don't care. But like, okay, everything's alive.
We're not talking about abortion. Once again, we're not talking about abortion. We're just talking about life.
How are you showing medical gore of abortion before then?
The only reason why I looked it up is because all of the examples I found were of illustrations, and I wanted to see actual pictures. And the only actual pictures were when they took the baby out of the womb, which at 2 weeks long, that's an abortion. So to get the image I wanted to find, which is an actual photograph of a baby outside of a womb, I had to type in the word abortion. I would say
life started a long time ago, and it's been going ever since.
Let me finish my statement. I would say my life started at the first trace of my DNA you could find. When you could find my DNA, I would say that is a good example of when I started. Now, whether or not that's the exact moment, that could be argued. But I'm saying if you can find my DNA strand, the full set of it, then that was when I started somewhere in there.
Okay. And What does that have to do with anything?
Well, so you're saying that life just keeps going because there's sperm and eggs, and yes, even though sperm and eggs are classified as alive in one sense of the word, what
They're
I'm
not
saying is that
classified, they are. So why are those two things different than what you would call a baby in the womb? That is a living thing that dies for a woman every month, or a man every time he comes.
The creation of new DNA. That's exactly what I was talking about. Is my dad and my mother had their own DNA. My DNA didn't come around till later. That was a starting point of some form, right?
Sure, yes.
So that's what I'm saying is, when does that baby who was outside the womb, when did that life start? Did it start when its grandparents were born? Did it start with the first monkeys that climbed out of the soup?
Technically, it would start when its mother was born, because a woman is born with all her eggs at once when they're born.
Okay, so then your claim would be separate from the sperm. The egg is the real baby, or real zygote, or whatever you want to call it.
It's just saying, you said when does it start, but okay, the egg you was inside your mother when she was born.
Okay,
like all of us.
So my
push that back then.
My problem with that is that's only half my DNA.
Okay,
but
that's my point being. It's like that. This has nothing to do with abortion. This has nothing to do with whether I think abortion should or should not happen. Like, this does not matter. This is an invalid argument. Like, who cares?
I agree. I'm not talking about if abortion should or should not happen. And if you don't care, then that's okay. You can excuse yourself if you like. But what I'm talking about is, when does life start? That's what tonight's show is about. Everybody wants to make it an abortion. I'm not trying to make it about abortion.
You showed medical gore of abortions at the beginning, and they said, well, now I don't want to talk about it because I'm traumatized from last time.
No, well, last week was last week's show. Different weeks have different shows. There was like a solid 3 or 4 shows. Tonight is about, when does life start? When does an individual life start? And you guys all have your own definitions, and I'm curious to explore them all.
But why? Okay, then let me ask. Why are you asking this question? What is your goal of asking this question?
So that we can all have a better understanding. So we can see the truth.
You don't follow any kind of science. You're just going off emotions.
If you looked at the first 20 minutes of this video, it was just looking at facts.
Those were all anti-abortion propaganda, Jeremiah. Those are all fake.
No, I just looked up.
They're fake, Jeremiah. You just fall for every piece of propaganda you see.
I actually made an argument about it being pro-abortion propaganda and how I disagreed with some of it. But that's the thing, is I was just...
They're all from pro-life sources. We could see on the screen.
I did not cherry pick them. I just pulled up what was.
But I mean, the only people who are going to be showing that kind of medical gore are people trying to scare people out of not getting abortions, which is what you're trying to do.
As I said, some of the sources I pulled, mainly the written ones that talked about the zygote and the fetus, those were not pro-life.
Yeah, but you got triggered when you read the word zygote. Like, you're like, well, that makes it not a person. They're trying to make it sound like it's not a person, when it's just a zygote's different from a baby.
Well, we can argue all day on whether
you're going to be incorrect, Jeremiah, because you're not coming from a place of science. You're coming from a place of faith.
Well, if you think that I'm irrational, then you cannot have the conversation with me. I'm trying to have rational conversations, though. So,
but you're not good. You're not having. But that's the thing. You're not having rational conversations. You're just getting emotional and freaking out.
Are you going to have a rational conversation with me about this topic? I'm going to try.
Okay, go ahead.
Again,
let's re-rationalize it. Go ahead.
Let's just say I was being upset. I'm going to try to calm down and focus this time.
I'm not saying you're being upset. You're using emotions to argue your point, and that's not compelling. You being upset about abortion is not compelling. Is not a compelling argument.
Okay. Let's focus. I'm trying to talk about when life starts. You're saying that all lives start in the original mother.
I'm saying all life is happening all the time. There's no start or stop other than death. Life is just always happening.
Individual life starts. It is created at some point. I did not exist from the beginning of time.
The matter you're created from did.
Oh yeah, well they created, I'm sorry, what did you say? I think I misheard you.
You did mishear me. I said the matter you're made of has always existed. Matter cannot be created or destroyed. So technically, yes. Then if that's your logic, then life began whenever the first evolution started and life started. That's when life began. This
is matter. Matter will flow throughout the universe in the next million years to be something other than a pen, I would bet. That does not make it life in its current
I didn't say it was life, Jeremiah. You're putting words in my mouth.
You're saying that life was forever,
no,
right?
Jeremiah. The matter everything is made of has always existed.
Yes,
that means the organic matter we're made of has always existed. There is also non-organic matter. That's a whole separate thing.
Okay, so I'm talking about life, not matter. I'm not talking about the skin cells on my
Everything.
hand right now.
Okay, but life only exists because of the matter we're made of.
Okay, that's not what I'm arguing. I'm talking about when does life
because you
start?
don't know anything about science. You're just being emotional about abortions because you're like, ooh, babies are dying. I don't want to see babies die.
Life start.
Life has always been. There's no point to try to put a start line on it. It just always has. Since the universe has existed, the matter that we're made of has existed.
When did my life start? Would you say since the beginning?
Everybody, sure. Your life started when you were born. Actually, your life started when you started to develop a personality. Is when I think people are kind of becoming a person.
So you'd say around 4 or 5 years old, people make
probably
that
2 or 3, but sure.
Well, people make that joke all the time, me being 3 years old in the playground laying on a bench, 4 years old laying on the bench, 5 years old, they wake up,
I don't know what that means.
Well, but you'd say a 2-year-old is alive, even though they may have not woken up yet.
But you're concerned about somebody becoming a person.
I'm not talking about becoming a person. No, I'm just talking about life.
Your argument is that a minute the sperm hits the egg, that's a person. At conception, that's a person.
That's my personal opinion, but that's not even what I'm talking about. I'm talking about life.
Yeah, you're being Weasley. You're just not arguing anything, man. You're just talking. And it's
Well,
just
I
not...
understand that you disagree with what a person is, so I'm not using the word person. I'm saying, when does life start, regardless of if you want to call it a person? I understand that some people would say a zygote's not a person.
Okay, if you're going to ask this question, you just say, when does a new life start, is what you should be asking.
When's what?
You should ask, when does a new life start? Not when does life start? Because when life starts can be 100 different things.
I did ask that once before, but I'll oblige. When does a new life start?
When the two things come together, a new DNA is made. That just doesn't matter, though.
Okay, so you would agree with the statement, life...
When new DNA is formed, sure.
Okay. That is all I'm trying to get at. I feel like that was pulling teeth.
Yeah, but I know where this argument's going to go, though.
Well, yeah, I mean...
You're just like, oh, but that means it's a baby, so therefore you can never get an abortion because I would be upset that you got an abortion.
Good grief.
Yeah, Jeremiah.
Look.
You're just immature when you talk about this stuff, man.
I'm going to breathe for a second. Look, and yes, I can get frustrated too. I'm human, okay? I got to control my emotions just like everybody else does. Here's the thing, though. You just said life starts at conception. Later, we can discuss all the rights, all the other things. But for whatever reason, everybody on the show doesn't want to argue if it's life. They want to argue the rights. I did not expect that. I thought we could actually have a conversation of, no, it's not life. Turns out a lot of you guys actually admit that it's life very early on. Now, Socks, I don't know his actual name. He did stick with first breath. So there was that. But we know that Sable said that a fetus, or as I'd like to call it, a baby, can be alive inside the womb, even past 20 weeks. We have from Iron Gullet that life is at conception. So we actually agree on this. Life is at conception. Now, next week, we'll have another topic. It might be something completely separate. It might be something just with line, like what he says the next argument will go. But it's Valentine's Day. I have a wife. I have a life. And I'm going to go and spend some of that. So thank you, Iron Gullet, for coming on. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And I'm going to cut the show short very early. I respect all of you guys for being here, and we can talk more about it later. All right, Iron, I'm going to let you have a final statement because I do try to be respectful, and I don't want to just overtalk somebody, but please be respectful with this final statement.
Again, you just ignore every reality that has to do with any of this topic because you're so emotional that a baby might die. When you don't care about what happens after they're born. If a baby is unwanted, then guess what? It's better off if they were just not here because there's not going to be anyone here to take care of them because you're not going to do it. Christians and conservatives aren't going to do it. So that's it. I just think you're a hypocrite.
Okay, thank you for your opinion. Obviously, I disagree, but
because you're a punk, man. You're just a little kid. You can't handle anything.
Just had to throw in those a few more insults right at the end. Anyway, that's the end of tonight's show. If you liked what you saw, make sure to subscribe. I'm sure I'm just sharing to the same 10 people over and over, but you know, I found a lot of interesting stuff for the show. I found out that people don't actually care about if it's life. Most people will admit that it's life straight down to the beginning. They're more upset about whether or not you have the right to end that life. So maybe that'll be next week's show.